The incentive compensation program is probably one of my favorite things about what we do because we created a very unique way to improve the performance of employees across the board, make the bank money, and finding a way to reward the best employees for performance. We know if the bank is going to make $1 million more, right, that there's X amount of money that can be distributed out to the employees on their behalf that will motivate them to do even more, which creates acceleration. And acceleration is the key, right? If we can create acceleration, some level of excitement, especially among those top two tiers of employees, then the performance is always going to improve. What's unique about our program is we use a scorecard system. And it is very unique in that it's balance sheet driven at either a local level and all the way down to maybe a lender or a teller. So we walk through a process that builds those reports for our customers every month, where we can show the performance of every frontline employee that interacts with a customer. What makes it even more unique and even better for our customers is that not only can they use that to determine who's selling, right? There are quality qualifiers in there that's going to determine the quality of the employee's performance. We know through the regulatory process, there's certain things the regulators expect us to monitor. And so having been through that for the last 20 years, our performance compensation plans always pass muster with the regulators. And that's really important. So creating that balanced program that balances for the shareholder, balances for the employee, balances for the bank, right? Balances for the customer, while also keeping the regulators happy is not the easiest thing to do. But we've mastered that over the last 20 years. And as you implement it, it always lifts performance. We've seen performance lift as much as 100% in 2 years. Well, the way the incentive plan started for us was we started getting some demand from customers that said, hey, we've got to figure this thing out. How do we compensate employees, especially our best employees, and retain them, create growth, and comply? So we started it. Probably our first incentive plan we implemented was 19 years ago, and we've been in business for 20 years. So we've been doing specific incentive plans for 20 years. Over time, they've evolved. We see what changes in the industry and what's important to monitor. And just from springboarding from that, we developed a system that works. Our first customer, it's an interesting story. The first customer that we did an incentive plan with in 2003 was a $120 million bank. And they were making, when we first started with them, they made close to $900,000. Fast forward about 5 years later, they were then about a $300 million bank, and they were making close to $4.8 million. So they consistently, after they implemented the incentive plan, they consistently had our ROA performance of 2.25 over a long period of time. The other thing that the incentive plan does is it creates buy-in from the employees that helps them understand how the bank makes money. Once they understand how the bank makes money and why it does the things they do, it changes the whole culture across the board to create a higher level of proactivity. And I think ultimately the proactivity is key.